Today we're gonna talk about Scotland. Well, Scotland is part of the United Kingdom and it's on the north of the Great Britain Island. Scotland shares borders with England in the south and with the Atlantic uh, Ocean in the north. Um, Besides the mainland, Scotland is made up of more than 800 little islands. Edinburgh is the capital of the country, but the largest city is Glasgow. The third largest city is Aberdeen, which is known as the European oil capital because of the huge oil reserves on the North Sea, which is in front of the city. The currency it's the pound sterling, as in the rest of the Great Britain, and we found that the thistle is the national flower. The national bird is the golden eagle, but the national animal is the unicorn. Saint Andrew is the saint of Scotland. Those are some of the more interesting facts about the introduction about Scotland.
The earliest examples of art from what is today known as Scotland are carved stone balls from the Neolithic period. From the Bronze Age, there are many examples of carvings, including the first representation of objects as well as cup and ring marks. More extensive examples of partner objects and goldwork are found in the Iron Age. Also, elaborately carved picture stones and impressive metalwork emerged in Scotland during the early Middle Ages. Moreover, the development of a common style of insular art across Great Britain and Ireland influenced the Scottish to the elaborate jewelry and illuminated manuscripts like the Books of the Kells. Sadly, only isolated examples of native work survive from the late Middle Ages, as well as work created or strongly influenced by artists of Flemish origins. The influence of the Renaissance can be seen in stone carvings and paintings from the 15th century.
Talking about language, of course, Scotland, as part of the United Kingdom, the official language is English, but we can find some differences, some different words that they may have from of course, the American English or the English from England. We have some words, for example, the I means like yes for them, or nigh it's no. Bonnie it's pretty. We have, for example, bear, which is child, little, young kid, and we have what a dreck day, for example. That's something that for them means what a overcast day. As I said before, the official language is English. All in Scotland, of course, with their own accent, which is really strong if you compare it with even the Irish or the people from England. And in some parts from the north that we call the Highlands, they call the Highlands, you can find people talking Gaelic, which is language even before the Roman presence on the Scotland land.
Christianity is the largest faith in Scotland. In the 2011 census, 53.8% of the population identified themselves as Christians, declining from 65.3% in the 2001. The Church of Scotland is often known as the Kirk, and it is recognized in law by the government, but it is not an established church and it is independent of state control. However, it is the largest religious group in Scotland, with 32.0% of the population. The other major church is the Roman Catholic Church, having 15.9% of the population. It is especially important in the west central of Scotland and in the Highlands, and it is the one we have in Nicaragua as well, if you were wondering.
Talking about families in Scotland, we found that the 65% of the families are composed by married couples. Around 15% are composed by just cohabiting couples. That means that they are not married but they live together. And around 20% of the families are composed by a single parent. If we compare that numbers with Nicaraguan, the Nicaraguans families, we found that on Nicaragua we have around 40% of the families with just one single parent on the house. So that means that Scotland, they are very traditional about talking about families. They believe on marriage. That is something that is really weird, and more, talking about a country on Europe. Since 1707, Scotland was ruled by the Crown from England. Only educational and legal system had their own separate office on Scotland. But since 1998, through the Scotland Act, the Scotland Parliament and the executive power were established. But they will be always a permanent secretary that represents the United Kingdom government on Scotland. The Scottish Parliament is composed by 129 seats. Right now, 64 seats are under the Scottish National Party, and the other 65 are under the opposition. From the 129 parliament representative, they choose one as the first minister, and it's the Queen who approves or disapproves this election. And this first minister chooses her or his cabinet with the ministers. They are in charge of matters like healthcare, education, justice, rural affairs, and transport. But the thing is this: there are some matters, mostly from economy matters, that are still under the hands of the United Kingdom government on London. In September of 2014, the Scottish National Party, they called to a referendum to say yes or no to the independence, to total independence from the United Kingdom government. On this election, only 45% of the Scottish say yes to the independence, and 55 say no. So right now they are still under the hands of the United Kingdom government.
In Scotland, primary lasts 7 years and high school 4, but there are 2 remaining years more that are optionals. The subject of studies are English, math, science, physics, biology, chemistry, history, and physical education. Some schools provide education in the Gaelic language, which used to be a language from the Scottish. These schools are mainly located in the main cities of Scotland and have become more popular these days. Also, it is very important to point out that all Scottish universities are public and were founded by the Scottish government. Also, 5 out of them are among the 2,000 best universities of the whole world.
Well, the national food and the national drink from Scotland are the haggis and the whiskey. The haggis is made of stomach, the sheep's stomach, and inside the sheep's stomach they put a heart, and the heart and the lungs of the lamb. Then they boil it, and you have the haggis. Now, the haggis looks curious because looks similar, like or moronga. Then we have the whiskey. As you know, there are some well-known brands from Scotland for whiskey, like Johnny Walker, Chivas Regal. Those are exclusive from Scotland, and they are very famous around the world.
The population of Scotland is closely to 5,295,000 people. The population growth rate in 2011 was estimated as 0.6% per year. More than 70% of the country's population lives in the central lowlands. From the 1960s to the early 1970s, they experienced a small increase in population, but from 1974 there was a natural decrease in population, with both an excess of death over birth and emigration over immigration, just as the rest of the UK.
Well, now I'm gonna talk about some famous Scottish people for the history and even nowadays. For example, we have Alexander Graham Bell, who was the person who created the first telephone. Then we have Patrick Macmillan. This person invented the first bicycle. And well, we have another some actors. For example, one of my favorites is Sean Connery, who was the first James Bond. And then we have, for example, Gerard Butler, who is Leonidas from the famous movie 300. We have Ewan McGregor from Star Wars. And through the history, we find another famous Scottish, who is William Wallace from Mel Gibson made a movie from him on Braveheart on 1992. And we have another famous Scottish, who was the one who defeated England in the 12th century, who was Robert the Bruce.
The Scottish economy is mainly based on the services they provide, with 72.3%. Production has 19.1%, in which we can find products like the famous Scottish whiskey and some others, right? Also, in construction, we have 7.8% of the whole amount. And the smallest one is agriculture, forestry and fishing, with just 0.8% of the whole amount. their economy could be seen like quite simple, as you can appreciate in the graphic. Let me get you a little close. As you can see, it is very basic and easy to understand. There's not much to say.
If we want to talk about the Scotland history, we need to go back to the year 900. At that moment, all the place that we know nowadays as Scotland was habitated for clans. All these separate clans, small clans, became to unite for some war, some civil wars, and then they become a kingdom, the kingdom of Alba. Alba is the Gaelic word for Scotland, and the agriculture, religion, and the prosperity ruled on that kingdom until 1297. In that moment, Edward I, King of England, believed that he must rule over Scotland, and the independence fights began at that moment. William Wallace was the first on the defeat the England army in the famous Battle of Stirling Bridge in 1298, and then Robert the Bruce continued with the fight against the son of Edward I, who was Edward II, and in that moment he completed defeat the England and for the independence of Scotland. And then in the 1603, the crowns from England and Scotland, they started to mix. The daughter of the King of Scotland married the son of the King of England, and in that moment they started to begin this kind of mix between the crowns until 1707. In that moment, with the death of Elizabeth I, James I from England, with only 17 years old, was crowned as the King of England, James I, and at the same time he was the King of Scotland was James VI. So he unified the crowns, and in the Act of Union created in the 1707, he created a single parliament from Scotland and England, and in that moment the United Kingdom of Great Britain was born. Since the Act of Union in 1707 until 1970s, London had more and more power over the Scotland topics. On that time, during the industrial age, at the beginning of the 19th to the 21st century, Scotland changed from rural to big cities like Edinburgh, Glasgow, or Aberdeen. And in that moment, in 1967, in that exactly year, the drilling of the North Sea changed the economy of the country because of the huge reserves of oil that were found just in front of Aberdeen. In that moment, a lot of feelings for independence that moved the country. And in that year, for example, was created the Scottish National Party, that is one of the more strong voices. This is the most strong voice, this party, for the Scottish independence. And in 1998 to nowadays, a huge referendum for the power devolution reestablished the Scottish Parliament and the uh, executive power with a first minister, and a lot of autonomies was returning to the Scottish government. A lot of decisions were back on the hands of Scotland government, the Scottish government. But in 2014, last year, through the independence referendum, uh, the as I say before, about talking when I was talking about the government, 55% of the people saying no to the fully independence, and against 45 saying yes. So right now the things have changed since 1707 until the moment of the Act of Union. But I think that in the near future, Scotland will be a fully independent country from the United Kingdom.